Alright, so you're starting off from scratch at point A over here, and you want to get to that peak level of fitness, point B over here. And you have a plan that's going to draw a straight line between the two, ideally, but things don't always go to plan. Some things change. Maybe you have to go to point A1, then you go to point A2, and you're zigzagging all along, and you're off the line. Hi there, Coach Sage Kennedy of SageRunning.com here with another training talk. Today we're going to talk about peaking, or kind of the idea of changes in your training over periods of time that lead to that peak race or that goal performance, be it trying to finish your first 10K or run a faster 5K or peak for a marathon, run a sub 3-hour marathon and qualify for Boston, or do an ultra marathon or something like that. And running's it's a matter of these macro cycles, thinking in terms of matters of days and weeks and months, versus more, did I say macro? I meant to say microcycles. Microcycles, thinking in terms of days or weeks or months, versus macro cycles that could be also months, but also years or even a lifetime or career in the making, right? So all these factors of your running, your age, your running age when you started running, how old you are in terms of your chronological age, and how much training you've been doing over time, or what another sport maybe. Maybe you played soccer or basketball or rock climbing or cycling or some other sport, skiing, that got you in shape and could change how quickly you improve, right? Because we want to improve our performance, or we want to run well when it counts the most, is what we used to say in cross-country season and track running, championship meets in high school and college, stuff like that. But maybe your goal is to peak for that marathon, that fast marathon course on that good weather day, right? Qualify for Boston or something like that. Or just to finish in one piece and say you did an ultra marathon or something like that. So the thing that it all comes back to is having a training plan. We do sell training plans, any service, any distance at SageRunning.com. That is a plug. Also, I will link to our free aerobic base building plan. It's a short-term plan, but if you want to get your mileage up slowly and progressively and sprinkle in a little quality workouts, that aerobic base building plan at SageRunning.com is a free download. But the idea is that you want to be consistent, right? That is number one. Consistency is key. That's a really common saying, but you can't get hurt. You got to stay healthy. You got to get enough sleep and eat right, but you don't want to get an overuse injury or strain or a sudden blunt fall injury or twisting your ankle playing basketball or skiing or something like that. Because if you're healthy, you could run. And if you're running, you're training. And if you could train a little bit more, or at least you could train in a manner where you're consistently hitting maybe higher mileage weeks, or you're running 5 times a week instead of 3 times a week, you're going to start making bigger gains usually in fitness. And that's going to build up over time. And how long that takes depends on a lot of factors. It also depends on what race you're training for. Generally, the longer distance endurance races take more of a base over years and experience of time. It's why you see people that peak in like the marathon and longer distance races usually don't do it until later in life. They don't peak as teenagers, right? I mean, some people did, but you know, you could still be in your 40s or 50s and knocking out PRs in the marathon. For someone like me who started really young, maybe, you know, in my 30s, it starts to get harder. But even up till 40, you could still be running some pretty good marathons, and ultra marathons especially. Whereas, you know, the 5K, the mile, you could also run well later in life in those. But as like high school kids or middle school kids, you know, under 20 starting out, it still takes some years to develop that aerobic base and to get experience. And if you're growing still, especially between like 9th and 12th grade, you could still make big improvements, but you don't have to have that super long mileage base of years and years and years and a bunch of 20-mile or 32K long runs necessarily. That usually takes more time for people to build up to. So the idea is to be able to build up your mileage to consistent levels and to get consistently higher, but not to get hurt, and then not to sacrifice your speed. And that's the whole idea with peaking in running, is we look at our training in these different phases, right? Jack Daniel's Distance Running Formula book, phase 1, 2, 3, 4. Arthur Lydiard, we got the aerobic base building phase, and people get really structured with this, and we do it in our Sage Running training plans. We have a lot of 12 or 16 week training plans that are kind of segmented into different blocks, but it kind of all flows together. And so you set your training plan by counting backwards from your goal race, or you have a peak season and you say, okay, I can't burn it hot and race at 100% all season long for months and months and months on end. You're not going to have AA races, A+ races, 100% all the way across the board. You're going to probably have some ups and downs, and your season's going to ebb and flow. But if you want to do well at that championship race, you can't be peaking too early or going too hard and getting injured too early, because then you're out of the season, you're out of the game, right? So staying healthy, being consistent, the first things, but then progressively, generally adding in intensity and taking more risks with adding in higher mileage and long runs are going to get you the gains to really peak. Now we start off with the aerobic base building plan or an aerobic base phase, and generally we're looking at several weeks of just easy running, 4 or 6 weeks, you're just running easy, right? A conversational pace, you could talk, it's not too hard, but each week maybe you're slowly building up, increasing your mileage. And check out my video on the 10% rule myth, I should say. But as long as you're not getting hurt, you're doing well, you could build up. Now you could have a rest week in there on week 4, then you're building back up again, right? And it's not always super incremental though. Some weeks you go up more than others, right? You could go up 5 miles a week, or what is that, 3K or 8K a week. But then some other weeks maybe it just kind of stays the same. Or maybe you were busy, you had some obligation, you felt maybe a little pain coming on, so you took the day off, right? Took an extra day off, something like that. So you got to be flexible with your training. And that's the whole point of this talk really, is that people set out these training plans, or they follow a book, or they say, okay, in 16 weeks I got to get up here, and you're at point A, you got to get to point B, and there's a straight line on the plan, but the plan deviates. Life happens, right? And you don't want to get injured though. You don't want to get derailed totally off the plan. So number one thing, stay consistent, stay healthy, don't get injured so you can train. Now, how you get to point A and point B, again, like I said, those first 4-6 weeks, all easy running, you generally want to be just running easy when you're increasing your mileage, because that's already enough of a stress. You start running fast, doing some track workouts, getting in some hill sprints, too much, and you're adding in another stress. So that's 2 stresses. You're increasing your mileage and you're increasing the intensity at the same time. Double stress, more risk for injury. It could get you in shape really fast though. It could get you in shape really fast, but you don't want to get in shape too fast. You're a distance runner. You got to be patient. So that's really the key, is looking in your training in terms of these week blocks, be it 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then looking at your training schedule in terms of, okay, I need to build up my fitness over a series of months. And the big takeaway here is that peaking, I'd say, is kind of overrated. It's kind of overrated because you're not necessarily going to get this giant incline of fitness and this perfect peak right at the perfect time for your race. That's the ideal. That's the goal of the plan. But usually the fitness kind of ebbs and flows. You super compensate. Sometimes you kind of lose fitness. You start doing some 20-minute tempo runs and you start doing some long runs and you get more tired. And there's a phase in there in your training, maybe after a month or 2 in the plan, where you start dipping down in fitness because you're extra tired. But then you give it a couple more weeks, boom, your fitness reaches another peak because your body compensated. You got stronger. Adaptations that you do in training, right? You do a hard workout, VO2 max workout, it takes 2 weeks, 12 days, 10 days sometimes to kick in. You do a long run, you're building changes, biochemical changes inside your body. It takes 3 weeks to kick in. But the day after, the week after, you could still be really tired from that long run, right? So you could overtrain or injure yourself and you don't realize the benefits. It's a diminished return and it's a delayed effect, so to speak. So peaking's kind of overrated. I think if you're consistent, you're ebbing and flowing with your fitness, you're looking at your whole year of racing or your whole year of goals, and you could kind of maintain a pretty high level of fitness but have little mini peaks and valleys with your fitness when you're trying to target certain events or performances. Now, I've made the mistake of trying to race any service, any distance all times, all months of the year, right? So sometimes there's some epic failures. There's also some success in there. And the goal, though, is not to get hurt, and the goal is not to race really bad or run slower. But you got to take care of your health first, and you got to realize that these things happen, and you got to adjust to that. So the idea is we're adding in, after our base phase, we're starting to add in always some element of leg speed, be it strides or hill sprints, but it's not all out, right? You don't want to pull a muscle. You also don't want to develop too much lactic acid. You don't want to be going over your lactate threshold, spiking the heart rate super high, and mentally it's hard too when you push yourself so hard, right? So you save those efforts for the big races. You save those efforts for later in the season and cycle, and depending on how much time you have, it could be months down the road. It could be only 10 or 12 weeks down the road. I guess that is months. It could be 4 to 6 months down the road. But at some point, you're probably going to have to reset the system and take a break and just relax and chill out and do some cross training, because either then you're either going to get injured or you're going to get burnt out kind of mentally because you're just too exhausted, and you need to reset the system before you reestablish aerobic base again, and that's going to take weeks. But, and here's the key takeaway I will leave you with, you still have some of that residual fitness left over from the prior 6 months. You still have those miles in your legs or kilometers in your legs that you ran last year, right? You have a lifetime of fitness base building that you're kind of always working with, and your body's changing over time, right? If you're getting older, like me, or you're a younger kid and you're still growing, muscular changes in your VO2 max, right? All these things, changes in shoe size, changes in what shoes you're wearing, changes in how much vertical you're doing in your training, how much hill work or how much speed work on the track. So keep that in mind. Stay healthy to stay consistent, and realize that, the peak's a little overrated, but it kind of ebbs and flows, and you want to roll with that. And I'll do another training talk, probably more advanced aerobic base building training, about sprinkling in the intensity in workouts, because it's kind of an art. It's also a science, and I'm kind of a geek about that. But thanks for watching on here. Again, check out those other videos. Link to a playlist of our training talks on here. Check out our coaching website, sagerunning.com. We got the free aerobic base building plan that Coach Sandy Nightpaver and I made. It's a free download. Follow me on social media. It's all in the description below. Thanks for watching. Thanks to the Patreon supporters and title sponsor, Hoko Neone. Keeping the dream alive. Hope you're doing well, and stay tuned for more.